Well, if you look at the national statistics, you find that the vast majority of people in the younger ages, and I say younger, 25 to 45, have less than $25,000 in retirement. And actually, I just want to bring it home. I think about that. My generation, I mean, it's not about us, although there are a number of people who are my age and older who are still having to work and think they'll never be able to do anything except work up until the time when they pass away. But we at least, prior generations addressed this problem in the 1930s, when we got Social Security. Many people believe today that that's not going to be around when they get there, and we've changed the nature of retirement considerably. I think back to when I started working, and it was pretty much predominant that most employers had retirement programs. In fact, most of them were defined benefit programs where, frankly, as a worker, you didn't have to think. You just went to work, and it was there, and you dealt with it. Well, over the last decade and a half, most of those programs have gone away. Some of them have gone into self-directed retirement, but frankly, most of them have just gone away. And so the fear that I have is when today's young people, if you move forward 30 years or 40 years, the country's going to be in an incredibly difficult situation. And my guess is that future generations will try to deal with that, and it's going to be a major drag on taxpayers in the future, on the youth of those ages. So I think there's something we can do about that. The national research shows that people don't save mainly because it's confusing to them. They don't know what's available to them. And also, well, you just don't think about it. The education on it is not very well. So we've introduced two companion bills, 2960 in the House and Senate Bill 615 in the Senate, which would set up a retirement savings board with the purpose of establishing a state program. And the state program would essentially be the first step in moving forward. It make available to many small employers who find that they just can't handle it. They just, in many cases out of confusion and some out of regulations, can't set up their own retirement programs. And so you're going to have a system where the state would offer one. All employees would be offered an opportunity to retire. They could opt out. Wouldn't be wise, but they could opt out. And the research has shown that that kind of approach gets people on the right step moving forward. Now, this is just the first step. What we would hope is that people, once they learn how to retire and start there, will extend out and do a better job on their own. But it's a good place to start. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to save future taxpayers some money, trying to make sure that younger people have an ability to retire when they hit my age, and stabilize things. So with that, I think...
One of our other co-sponsors is Representative Williamson from Portland. Please.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Williamson. I'm the state representative for House District 36, the west side of Portland. And as Senator Beyer talked about Oregonians 25 to 45, a statistic that I found shocking is that between 45 and 65, 1 in 6 Oregonians has less than $5,000 saved for retirement. And I'm particularly interested in this for all of the reasons that Senator Beyer mentioned, but also for its disproportionate impact on women. Currently in Oregon, over 40% of retired women live in poverty. Why are women disproportionately impacted? Well, we know that women earn less at every level of employment, and for 40 years of working, we earn almost $450,000 less than our male counterparts. We also often take temporary leave or work part-time in order to raise our families or care for our loved ones. And this lifetime of lower earnings means that we have no choice but to work through retirement or live in poverty. So it's no wonder that women have 70% less in their total retirement savings than men. So we need to look at the realities that Senator Beyer mentioned, the population between 45 and 65, and the disproportionate impact on women and communities of color for this issue as well. So thank you.
So I think Senator Beyer and Representative Williamson did a good job explaining why it's clear that there is a retirement crisis in Oregon and across the country. And I think it's clear that we've got to take some steps to help solve that problem. I'm excited about House Bill 2960 and Senate Bill 615 because they represent a big step forward by making retirement plans available to Oregonians who don't already have access to them at work. The system we envision will be voluntary, professionally invested, portable, and place minimal burdens on business. We know that when plans are available to people through their workplace, they participate. While more than 71% of people save for retirement if a plan is offered at their workplace, just 4.6% of people save if they have to find their own plan. That's reason for us to act. And I'm proud to sponsor these bills with my colleagues because they'll give Oregonians the means and the opportunity to take control of their retirement and the chance to retire comfortably and with dignity. We are not just legislators acting on our own, though. We have a number of great partners, among them Sarah Gill from AARP, who's joined us. Sarah.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. As you've heard, that we have a retirement security crisis. People are 15 times more likely to save if they can do so through their employer at work. But we know that almost 1 out of 2 folks don't have a way to save right now via their employer. So although education is necessary, it's just not sufficient. We need to take action. We've seen states all over the country do this. More than 17 states have pursued similar legislation or are considering it as we speak. And many of those states have taken their cue from Oregon's leadership on this issue. The state continues to be a leader. I'd like to highlight very quickly a study that was recently released in Utah by Brigham Young University. They found that taxpayers will save more than $200 million over the next 15 years if we can just increase savings rates by a modest 10%. 10% is not a lot, and 15 years is not a long time horizon. So if we can help people get the access that they need to be self-reliant and live with dignity in retirement, that's a good thing all around for taxpayers as well as individuals. This is truly a bipartisan effort. We see red states and blue states working on this across the country, from other states on the West Coast like California, Washington, all the way to North Dakota. And Illinois obviously just passed secure choice legislation that will help 2.5 million individuals in that state save for retirement. And then the East Coast as well, Maryland, New Jersey, Virginia, all over the place. And these states really have, as I mentioned, taken a cue from Oregon. So I'm very excited because this legislation is also getting a lot of support from the industry. I know in Illinois, they had support from groups like TIAA-CREF and Cabrera Capital, Ariel Investments. So we're seeing a conglomeration of both legislators, lawmakers, groups like AARP who are advocates, and the business industry come together and really support legislation to solve this problem in the future and to help taxpayers.
Thanks, Sarah. Our last speaker is Rob Sisk from SEIU.
Hi, I'm Rob Sisk, president of SEIU 503 OPEU, and we represent over 55,000 workers throughout Oregon. About half the workers we represent have no retirement savings to their employers. Because of this, we see members having to work into old age with no end in sight to working and unable to enjoy the fruits of a long career of dedicated service. This means continuing to work through infirmities and even disabilities that are often eventualities after years of demanding dedicated service. But without a secure retirement plan, they have no choice. Unless, like others that simply are not physically able to work anymore, they are forced to retire into poverty. We desperately need alternatives to the work till you die or retirement into poverty. SEIU enthusiastically supports these bills that would give workers the chance they deserve to save their own money for a secure retirement that all workers deserve after years of dedicated service. Thank you.
Thank you. I think with that, we're open to questions.
what would be the role of the board, and would it actually run a plan, or would it give supervision to plans that were actually operated by others? What's envisioned in this?
The way we envision it is creating an easy system for employees to have their own money withheld and pooled for professional management. We expect that the state would contract with a professional manager who would provide those services. In many ways, I think it's very similar to the model that's been established by the 529 College Savings Plan. Anything to add?
Yeah, got it covered.
So I'm trying to envision, I mean, would this look like if I am an employee, a worker who's working in this program, would it look like my 401k where I see a list of investment options and I choose the ones I like, or?
We do want to make sure that people have choices, and what we're trying to do, I think, is to give the board the ability to ask and answer smart questions along those lines, and not presume that in the legislation or in the legislature we know all of those answers at this point. But I think your description of offering choice and ease of access to employees is the key. We've heard again and again about how many people want to do this, both as an employer and as an employee, but are held up as a result of complications and difficulties, and we want to make that connection easier for people so that they can save their own money for their own retirement. Senator Beyer.
Good comment. This is not targeted at employers or that are in positions where they're already offering a 401k or a SEP or something, one of the other tax-deferred. This is for those who have not participated and haven't found a way to do that. A lot of research has shown that for many very small employers, it just isn't cost effective for them to be able to set something up. So this is an intent to provide them with a vehicle that's easy for them. They don't have to do anything other than offer it to their employees, and if their employees choose to have that taken from their paycheck, just do a deduction like they would do for a United Way or Social Security or something else.
In fact, we heard testimony on Friday and have had good written testimony from a number of small businesses who say, I'd like to do this, but I don't have an HR department. I can't handle that while I'm trying to run my business. So we want to make it easy, again, both for employers and employees.
So is it really that, what's the barrier? Why is it so difficult for an employee to set up like a 401k plan? Aren't there, I don't know, TIA, craft for these investment planning organizations help employers set these things up and make it relatively easy?
There are, those products do exist, but there are many of them, and they are complicated and they are difficult, and it's, as a small business person who is trying to expand their business and make payroll and do all of those sorts of things, it's one of the other things that they don't necessarily get to. The small business people that I've talked to, talk about their desire to do it, but trying to fit that in amidst their other responsibilities, that's something that often doesn't happen. So again, making that connection between the desire and removing the barriers, I think will serve the state and serve individuals very well.
I realize these are all different issues, but how does this fit into a menu of things that are being considered by this session in terms of employee benefits, minimum wage, paid sick leave? There may be some others I'm missing here.
Well, what I would say is that there are strong feelings on a lot of the other issues that you mentioned, but my experience has been that this concept about retirement security is a place where a lot of people come together. People who are otherwise in different places on the other issues you mentioned have an easier time, I think, recognizing both the need and the opportunity that this approach represents.
And Peter, you recognize the other things you mentioned that would be perceived and would be cost to the employer. This is not. This is an option for the employee to save.
That's right. That's right.
How are the costs covered? Are they covered through the?
They're covered through the earnings, and again, very much like the 529 College Savings Plan that was initially funded by a loan from the state that was paid back well before its scheduled time, and now the 529 College Savings Plan, I'm an investor there. The costs of administration are covered by the earnings. The fact then is, of course, that as the number of participants grows, those costs are spread across more and more people, and the fees continue to decrease, and earnings continue to go back to individual investors.
Important to note, these are not, will not be state-run, will not be a state-run plan. There'll be a board who oversees it and sets it up, does a request for proposals, and selects a contractor, like we did with the college savings plan, and they will manage the program and invest the funds.
That's right. Other questions?
Is there an ability for the employer to offer a match?
We're working on that. I think that's certainly we don't want to preclude that. It's very clear in the legislation that that is not required, and I think it remains to be seen as we work out the details whether that's something that can be facilitated easily. But we would certainly welcome employers who would like to do so.
Do you know of any conflicts or possibly how it might dovetail with federal retirement law, this sort of plan?
Yeah.
Well, that's now you're getting into some complicated area that, to be honest, ERISA is the federal law, and the part of the language of the bill, both bills, said that specifically we will not do anything that will conflict with ERISA laws. Although, as the treasurer, if you'll recall, Peter, last session we set up a task force that we asked the treasurer to head and look at this, and one of the things that we discovered is it's very hard to get an answer from the federal government about whether you can do something or can't do it unless you have something set up.
Having said that, and of course Senator Beyer is right, we're also the beneficiary of a number of other states exploring these questions. There was a memo just last week from the state of Connecticut that's actually on OLIS as part of the hearing that we had in the House that suggests that it is possible to enact ERISA-like standards, fiduciary responsibilities, and processes and procedures that that really good scrutiny and care without triggering ERISA. We don't intend to trigger ERISA, and in fact, in the bill it says that we cannot go forward if ERISA is triggered.
I mean, part of the whole thing is to make sure, as we're trying to be helpful, that we don't put employers in jeopardy.
That's right. That's right.
Other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.